Hello guys, so again, I'm Professor Brian Ives Araneta, and again, I will be presenting a social impact assessment model in fisheries. And I got this model from a paper by Paul Nack et al. Okay, and it's entitled Towards a Model for Fishery Social Impact Assessment. So again, just Google this. I will provide you with a screenshot of the paper. And again, you read it and you will learn more from it after this. Okay, this is actually my assignment in fishery social impact assessment of fisheries projects under Dr. Noel Armada. Now, social impact assessment has been an integral component of every management endeavor, or shall we say, project development and implementation. Okay, we always have that monitoring part or that assessment part. And however, I could not find a more focused material on social impact assessment of fisheries projects. Okay, if you really want to focus on the fisheries projects, there are a lot of fisheries projects out there, and there is no such framework or overall framework or general framework to cover these projects. We know that fisheries as a field, okay, it actually encompasses a lot of disciplines like environmental biology, okay, economics, marine science, okay, and also fisheries resources varies from one region to another, so that it would be impossible to come up with an all-in-one strategy. But again, the model that I'll be presenting from this paper tried to look at social impact assessment in the context of fisheries resources only. Okay, and in this paper, the authors are driving that investigating out there in the community is useful only when the investigator or the researchers are within the perspective of fisheries economists and fisheries biologists. So you have biology and economy as a framework if you want to investigate out there. Because they were able to make a survey of fisheries managers. Okay, so they asked the authors asked the fisheries managers in a focus group discussion about how they can incorporate what they learned in a community. For example, the data that they got there, the information that they got there, how are they going to incorporate that? Okay, the social values, for example, of a community. How are they going to include that in shall we say, planning and decision making? Okay, and the authors found out, okay, given the suggestion, given the narratives and insights of these managers, they found out that it is unlikely, okay, that community information can be used in management if and only if the data that they are using is descriptive or qualitative in nature. So what do you mean by this? So meaning, if you get data there and it's in a qualitative form, or shall we say descriptive only, okay, it's not useful in planning and decision making. Okay, but again, here in the Philippines, it's common, right? Okay, it's the core of every social science research in the field of fisheries. You go there to a community, okay, you ask the community members, okay, you have a survey sheet, and then you get descriptive data, okay, demographics and all that, satisfaction, perception, all that. And from the phenomenological perspective from the experiences, okay, you get qualitative whole picture assessments. Okay, but again, that's our usual practice here in the Philippines, but they found out, okay, these are international authors. They were able to found out that, shall we say, it's the experience of the managers out there that this qualitative information is not useful in the planning process. So here they created a model that is more of quantitative in nature. Okay, and it sort of included variables. Okay, you have the dependent and independent variables. And this dependent measure usually is like analogous to the economists' use of jobs, income, or shall we say total economic output. Okay, but in the case of SIA, they give more emphasis on the well-being. Okay, and the approach presented in the paper emphasizes that humans are an important component of marine ecosystems, and they also encourage the development of strategies that is compatible with the ecosystem-based approaches, if you are familiar with that. Okay, and the model again was designed to predict, okay, changes in well-being. So well-being is the sort of outcome of this model, and you have this well-being, and there are lots of variables that were identified, okay, as part of that generalized model, because again, it's only a general model that can be used in more specific ways, okay, if used by other researchers like us, for example. If we want to apply that in the Philippines and we use their model, we can derive lots of interactions from that model. Okay. Now, what is this well-being, guys? That is the primary dependent variable in the SIA model that they created. Okay. So well-being, what is that? It's basically the degree to which an individual, not necessarily an individual, also a community, or maybe a family, or a social group, it's their you can actually characterize that as being healthy. Okay, so the individual or that group is healthy, or they are happy, right? Okay, or shall we say prosperous. Okay, health, wealth, happiness, satisfaction in life, that's well-being. And usually yung focus lang natin palagi is the monetary gain. Okay, so but of course one might argue that changes in the economic welfare are adequate measures of shall we say well-being. And social scientists, however, have shown that it's not only the financial gains, so also the fishing, interactions with marine resources. Okay, those activities they are it's actually much more, okay, than solely an economic activity. So again, I'll start presenting here the graphical models. Okay, and again, I will try to discuss this by relating it to the Philippine setting. And this will be partly my personal understanding and perceived applicability of the model in our country. Okay, so let's try to take a look at this generalized model. Okay, let's have the non-expanded form first. Okay, just the primary variables. So we can follow this up with a more expanded form. Okay, based on the FGD or focus group discussion of the researchers. So in this case, I will just give you my own understanding in this expanded form and try to relate this to the Philippine setting. But again, when I show you the expanded form, that's already the work of the authors. Okay, so let's have first this general marine resource SIA model. Okay, and as you can see here, ecosystem does not appear as an element in the model because again, everything in the diagram is actually part of the ecosystem. Okay, so it is incorrect to add the ecosystem to the external forces here. Although parts of the, of course, this parts of the ecosystem are also, shall we say, external forces. Because again, the community is also part of the ecosystem. And here I will not also mention anything about fisheries projects because again, there is a greater entity called this fisheries program management or activity here. And projects are just part of these activities. Okay, now where are we going to start here? Maybe I'll begin with well-being here at the bottom. Okay, so this is being pushed down by these elements like your social problems, external forces, satisfaction, and fisheries activity attributes. The social impact assessment model is designed again to predict changes in well-being. Okay, so again, to define well-being for the sake of this discussion, let's think of three words or keywords: health, happiness, and prosperity. And again, as you can see, anybody, even you, all of us can interpret this flow diagram in many ways, depending on your experience, your vicarious experience, the experience of others. So let's not really focus on the magnitude of the arrows. So let us treat these arrows as signs that in one way or another, there is interaction in at least two of the variables in both ends. So, individual attributes, of course, should be the primary determinant of well-being because, again, your health, wealth, and happiness can be a function of your mindset and your work ethic, including the amount of energy that you have, your money, your values, your ideals in life. In short, every individual has survival tools to ensure well-maintained well-being. So it's up to us, right? Okay. But then, the individual is not alone in the social environment. So here on the right, we have the social attributes of a community. Okay, the good, the bad community is relative to its, let's say, social interest and is therefore subjective in nature. If the social or community attributes favor the interest of the individual, then of course, well-being will be pushed to the positive side. That is obvious and doesn't require management. That's why it's not included here in the picture. And we have here the social problems in between the individual and the social attributes. So only the potential conflicts of interest here should be given attention so that proper interventions can be made. Okay, and these three are really weights to carry. Okay, every individual attributes can be handicapped. Not everybody are resilient, right, or skillful. Okay, then the social problems can also be overwhelming. Okay, so if there is less, there will also be less pressure on the well-being. That's why there's an arrow here pointing towards management, and another arrow from the social attributes, because it is important to have a good understanding of the social attributes if you want to properly manage these social problems. Then, management has these outcomes as activities with its own attributes, and the participation of the individual here is crucial. Because again, individual attributes also determine the overall characteristics of these activities. So who participates in these activities? And these activities now can include fisheries projects. So this is where fisheries projects are located. Okay, and the success and failure of these activities is also a result of the interplay between the individual, okay, the community, and management. And this can be translated to activity satisfaction that can lessen or worsen the problems, okay, and can affect the individual and its well-being. But despite these known interactions that can help managers become successful, there is still this external forces that is located at the top. So it has a say on everything below it. So this is of course sort of uncontrollable, okay, but of course there are some parts of it that you can manage, but again, it's there at the top. So meaning those below it can be influenced by it, even the management, and they can only manifest here in the social attributes. So we can at least be warned of its presence if we already go through the social attributes. Okay? So we can be at least ready, and we can adjust our management strategies, right? So I hope that my synthesis of this generalized model showing the various interrelationships is acceptable to you. If not, I know that you have something in your mind right now that can further enhance this model. But then this is only a generalized picture. This general model here was also expanded in this form. Now, as you can see here, for the external forces, okay, I'll just show you the things that were a result of the focus group discussion by the authors. Because again, the previous one was simply my synthesis and how I relate it here in the Philippine setting. So right here, these are already the components that are placed there by the authors. So here for the external forces, we have population pressure. So I think this is more of the competition side, okay, between the members of the population. As we have more population members, we should also expect depletion, for example, of resources. Okay. Then we have here the stakeholders outside the community. I look at this as sort of the demand from the business sector. Okay, and then of course the fluctuating rise and fall of your fish stocks. So these are at the top because again these are the independent variables that we have to adjust to. So think of these things here as variables, quantitative in nature, because that is what is being driven by the authors of this paper. You have to be the assessment should be measurable, okay, in such a way that so that's the only way that we can use that in planning and decision making. Okay, and the management area here is already governed by global, or shall we say, generalized regulatory systems. Fisheries laws, for example, and the scope of other government agencies can also interfere here. Also the management structure. Okay, so this is now project-based or specific to a particular program in a community, and the involved managers. So this is, I think, more on the implementation side of management. So you have to deploy and account people. So, and given the people, of course, they are not perfect. Okay, you can have efficiency and deficiency there when it comes to how problems are tackled. And this will cater to a variety of variables that characterizes the activity attributes. For example, you have to align here the management to seasonal changes in fisheries. Okay, so what fishing gears or vessels are used or are involved. Okay, the cost of every activity is a primary attribute, as well as your resource use. So who owns the resources or whatever is harvested or caught? Also the location and the site here. Okay, the duration, the nature of the activity, including the safety, all of this needs to be managed. And satisfaction is a function of management, and what, who, where, and maybe how the activities are carried out. But here there is an interplay here between the individual attributes and your community or social attributes. Maybe you can call that the socio-cultural aspects. Okay, so there's the interaction there, and we have problems in the middle. So all contributes to well-being. And the social community attributes, on the other hand, it's sort of feedbacking to the management. But it's also under pressure by the external forces. But of course, it can also get information from the external forces. Okay, again, you can look at each of these elements. Okay. And again, there are a lot of models that were derived from this. So again, I will no longer discuss them, but the point is the potential of that general model for social impact assessment in fisheries can be reconstructed in various ways. And you can do that to sort of fit to a particular community or project, or to a particular goal. So it's like a framework, or a framework geared towards management, assessment, and monitoring, okay, as well as impact assessment. So you can use that as a springboard to create your own, a model that is more specific to your investigation. And again, the paper also recommended that social impact assessment in 3 types of fisheries, okay, namely your commercial, subsistence, and recreational fisheries. You should also be able to make impact assessments or make models on these 3 types of fisheries. So you try to think of this as 3 closed, separate systems. For example, who are involved in commercial fisheries, where the goal is, of course, to make money, right? So what are the primary interests of the stakeholders in this sector? In subsistence fisheries, where the goal is not to sell but to eat, okay, or to eat the catch, or to sustain the family. So what are the external pressures here that can affect them? Will this type of fisheries be regulated differently? So what kind of well-being is being valued in this area? Or how about recreational fisheries? Do we have that here in the Philippines? Okay, should we launch more activities on recreational fisheries? And will that, if we do that, will that have an impact on the other sectors or other types of fisheries? So things like this can be investigated using this model or framework. And again, all in all, social impact assessment must shift to a robust quantitative type of endeavor. And the variables should be well known and defined. We know that the rigors of social science methodologies is mostly qualitative, right? So it's according to this paper, it's hard to use that in management because we don't have relative values. We cannot correlate, kumbaga. Okay, we cannot make regression analysis, for example. Okay, so that's very important. The interrelationship, correlations in impact assessments, because again, we have impact, we have the source, we have the activities, we have these pressures. We need to have measurable variables, and we should be able to correlate these variables. And we don't have that in simple descriptive studies. Okay, descriptive studies, only the sample. We only get the sample. Okay, that's not enough to generalize. We have qualitative studies. Okay, there's no numbers in there or standard values. And also, policy making must be also be grounded in quantitative data, as well as the management of fisheries. So again, please read the full paper, guys, if you have time. And again, thank you very much for watching. This is the last subject requirement that I'll be complying this year. Okay, bye-bye.